Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's Brunch Bunch, Getting Your Voice Heard. Brunch Bunch is a partnership with Prince George's Community Resources, the ARC Prince George's County, and the Archdiocese of Washington Office of Deaf and Disabilities Ministries. Brunch Bunch provides resources and ways for individuals living with disabilities, their family members, service providers, and friends to know more about what's available in our communities, and of course, as today's topic is, ways to advocate. Brunch Bunch team includes myself, Rachel Chung with the Office of Deaf and Disabilities Ministry, Melanie Clark with the ARC Prince George's County, and Pam Rosansky with Prince George's Community Resources. Please note for today's webinar will be recorded and we will allow time for questions. Also, on the GoToWebinar control panel, which should be to the right side of your screen, you will see a tab for handouts. And today we have 5 handouts available for you to download. If for any reason you're having difficulty downloading those attachments, please contact me at chung.r@adw.org. And with us today is Tracy Wright, and who will begin also with our presentation in a bit. Tracy Wright has served in many roles across the state of Maryland in advocacy. Currently, she is with People on the Go Maryland, the state self-advocacy agency, and currently she's serving as the training director and advocacy coordinator. But let's start today with just a few quick reminders. For today's webinar, everyone will remain muted. And again, please look to the right side of your screen for the GoToWebinar control panel, and you should see a tab there that says questions. So please feel free to enter questions in there at any time. And again, as I mentioned, we have 5 handouts available with today's webinar, including a resource page and also a PDF version of today's PowerPoint. So again, we are so pleased and grateful to have with us today Tracy Wright, who again is currently working for People on the Go Maryland. Tracy and I have worked on many advocacy issues together over the years that we've known each other. But of course, this is one of our passions, I believe, Tracy, which is self-advocacy, making your voice heard. And of course, one strong way to do that, which is voting. So Tracy, I will turn it over to you, please.
Well, thank you, Rachel, and thank you everybody for having me today. I'm so happy to be here and to talk about a little bit about advocacy and the importance of advocacy. I have had, as Rachel said, I've had the pleasure of being involved in a lot of things across the state with regard to advocacy, but People on the Go is definitely where I got my start, and is a very big voice throughout the state for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, advocating. And one of the things we very much believe in is people need to use their right to vote with their voice, or to advocate and let people know what they need in their lives, and learn how to advocate for themselves and share what affects them in their life. So today I will talk a little bit about what is advocacy, and then the importance of advocacy, and I will also share a little bit about the different meanings that People on the Go has. We call it a POG for short, POG. And hopefully you'll want to find out more about POG and get involved if you're not already involved. So advocating is really being able to kind of argue or present a point about something, whether it's for yourself, you could be doing it for yourself or doing it for others, in favor of something or against something if something's not right, and doing it on, like we said, for yourself, or I said, for yourself, or on behalf of others. And um, the importance of advocacy is to have your voice heard on important issues, and to protect the rights and to promote rights for people with disabilities, because a lot of times people don't even know they have the right, um, for certain things like the right to vote, which we'll talk about. Um, and it's also to have your wishes, and if you have any concerns or problems or issues you want to share and that affect your life, to the people either who are directly involved with your life or the people that make decisions like for funding and things like that in your life. So these are some of People on the Go's recurring meetings. We have virtually, we have every other Friday. Our next Friday meetup is what we call them. We started them at the start of the pandemic. We were meeting every week on Fridays just as a way for people to connect. And more recently, we've, since things have improved with the pandemic, we've dropped back to doing it bi-weekly. So our next meeting is going to be on the 6th of May from 3 to 4. And we usually have a speaker at those meetings. We've had speakers on different topics. And one of the ones we're hoping to have in the future is about the ticket to work and eligibility, as people are thinking about moving, the possibility of going to competitive work and getting involved. So we want them to learn. And then we have quarterly meetings, and we've done these all virtually during the pandemic. And the next one, we are going to do a hybrid version from our office in Baltimore. So we have some members that really want us to get back together because we've not been together for over 2 years in person. So we're going to have some of our members are more comfortable and need to stay at home. And the ones that want to come and join us in person, we're going to get together in person. And that is on the 4th Saturday, June 4th, the first Saturday in the month from 11 to 3. And then a little later on, I'll talk to you about, we offer what's called STIR trainings, and that stands for Steps Towards Independence and Responsibility. They are free trainings. DDA provides the funding for us to offer them to free to people, any interested person with disability, and anyone supporting a person with a disability is welcome to attend those trainings. And again, I'll talk a little bit more about them. And then I just want to tell you, because we're talking about a little bit about voting today, I wanted to share that we also have a legislative committee. And our legislative committee was meeting weekly, virtually, online, and anybody can join that committee. And we worked on helping to get the supplemental budget for DDA, for direct support staff, um, through and funded so that that money could go directly to direct support staff. And our group worked on writing letters to the governor and Secretary Brinkley of Health and Human Services to say why we needed that supplemental budget. And we're happy to say that went through. And these are our Project STIR trainings that I mentioned about. And there are different topics, and there are trainings offered in June, May and June at different times. And so they're there, and people people on the go has a web page. We also, Rachel has included a flyer in that tab portion, she said, that has those dates listed on there as well. And these are 2-hour trainings, and they're the trainers are people with disabilities who have learned to be trainers and kind of live advocacy and share their experiences related to the STIR curriculum. And STIR was developed from the University of North Carolina, and we've adapted it, and DDA brought it to Maryland and has asked people on the go to offer it to interested individuals. And this is POG's contact information. At this time also, Devin Wiley is a part of the audience. She is also, some of you may have known Ken Capone and Tammy Goldsmith. They've been around for a long time. Ken was very active in this. He hasn't gone anywhere. Nothing's happened to Ken. He just happens to be retiring towards the end of May, and he's thankfully going to still partner with POG on a lot of things. But and Tammy was the program coordinator that worked very closely with Ken. And Devin Wiley, who I just mentioned, who is part of our audience today, is the new program coordinator for People on the Go. So Devin, I know we're catching you kind of a little off guard, but we are hoping you will introduce yourself. And Rachel's gonna unmute you.
And Devin, if that's okay. Let's see. Okay, Devin, you are able to introduce yourself if you're able to there.
Hi, everybody. My name is Devin. I am the incoming program coordinator. I've been here for about 2 months, going on 3. And just a little bit about me real quick. I used to be a direct support professional and a supports planner. So I have been in this field for about 12 years. I'm very excited to be here, and I hope to, see some of you all on the Project STIR meetings, and just nice to meet everyone. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Devin, so much for a surprise unmuting there. So thank you, and we look forward to you. All right, great. So Tracy, I know we wanted to talk, of course, today about voting, and people might be wondering why we would particularly like to talk about that issue at this time. And today we're going to focus in on Maryland, right, Tracy? Since this is the states that you and I reside in as well. We know sometimes with the Brunch Bunch, we have friends that join us from perhaps Washington, D.C. area or even Virginia. But Maryland this year is having an election in 2022, and there's many issues that will be voted on this year for Maryland. One important one, we will have a new governor. Governor Larry Hogan, who's our current governor, cannot run for another term. So that's a huge question, of course, on our ballot for Maryland residents. Also, all of our counties are up for re-election, our county positions, including county executive and county council members. Also, we will be able to elect state senators, judges, registers of wills, school board members. So it really is a significant election for us in Maryland. And actually in the United States as well, all members of the House of Representatives will be up for re-election. And Tracy, I think you would agree that in some ways, these leaders really impact our lives, from roads to access, as we mentioned, school board members, which for parents that are with us today. What other issues do you think are really determined at this local level?
Well, I think a lot of issues are decided, like how much they're going to spend on transportation, or whether they'll improve like sidewalks or access to services even for us. Different things are decided because at the federal level they decide to give states money, and then at the local level the states get to kind of decide, once the governor distributes it to the different counties, how they're going to spend it in which ways. So it's important for us to use our vote as our voice to be involved as much as we can. And there are a lot of different, like you said, different people running for different positions in government. But the ones that you think about that are important to you, and the ones that maybe are directly involved with your community, or ones that you might want to learn about. And every board of elections and every county has great resources to help you, places to direct you to where to go learn about the different issues that will be on the ballot. Of course, the Board of Elections, just like us, can't say they think you should vote for or really tell you anything, but they can direct you with resources. And I know the League of Women Voters also is a great resource where you can learn about different issues. And I know you've shared some other resources today, Rachel, about where people might go to learn some other things. And I wanted to mention, I mentioned this yesterday, but 411vote.org is a great place also, where things are kind of broken down pretty easily to understand if you want to learn more about what's coming up to vote on. So.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Tracy. And I should note one of our handouts, which talks about advocacy and voting resources, has the link to that website that Tracy mentioned, which is an excellent way to find out all the issues. You simply put in your zip code, because of course issues are local, and they'll direct you to those issues for your area. So just as we mentioned earlier, Maryland it's a very big election, right, Tracy, as we were saying, and a lot of those issues that are determined at those local levels. Thank you for mentioning transportation. Housing, right, is also a big and very significant issue for many of us, right, including people living with disabilities. So it really is an important time for us to know about those issues. So Tracy and I just wanted to share some important dates, because this was a change in the Maryland primary, which will be held on July 19th for in-person voting, and early voting will be from July 7th to July 14th. And the general election in person is November 8th, and early voting will occur from October 27th to November 3rd. And oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Tracy. Go ahead, please.
I just want to make a push, if people are really going out to considering voting in person, because I know you can still get your ballot by mail if that's the way you prefer to vote. But if you do prefer, if you want to go in person, and they do have ballot marking devices that can assist people with disabilities to read the ballot, enlarge the print, and you can use those ballot marking devices. So some people do prefer to go in person, but I really encourage you to go, if you are going to go in person, rather than wait until the day of election, to go to those early voting sites, because they have long hours. Usually they're open from like 8 in the morning till 7 at night, and they're even open the week before the primary, the week before the primary. They're open on Saturday and Sunday as well. So you can really go whatever fits your schedule. And that's a great time so you don't have to, you can avoid those long lines.
Yeah, thank you, Tracy. I mean, that's a great tip, especially for our voters that might have some mobility challenges, right, Tracy? So you don't have to stand
Yes.
in line or those types of challenges you might encounter. And this particular website here that I put is the State of Maryland Board of Elections, and it's also in our handout. And this gives you a lot of information, and it breaks it down by each county on what offices are actually up for election, including sheriff, again, register of wills. That there's many, many offices up for re-election this year in the state of Maryland. And Tracy, interesting to note, we've remembered we had our census in 2020, um, which was an interesting time, right, to have a census.
Yeah.
Um, and in Maryland still, this is where we're going to have to be alert, right, as active advocates, that some of those voting districts are still being drawn. So the challenge could even be some candidates don't know what district they'll be in. So it's, again, another challenging year, right, Tracy?
That's why the primary was actually moved, because
That's right.
they were still working out that redistricting, which is, that just means our county's getting bigger and growing in Montgomery County, and so it's an interesting time for sure.
That's right. So again, Tracy and I just wanted to mention this very briefly, in case, because we know, we have friends and perhaps we work in other areas. Just to mention briefly, Washington D.C. Also having an election. Of course, they'll be electing a mayor and their representatives to the city council. And just like us in Maryland, the House of Representatives will also be voted on in Virginia. So Tracy and I just wanted to mention that briefly, since we do work and have friends in other areas besides Maryland. So Tracy, now we're getting into about voters living with disabilities. So what can you tell us about the different accommodations that can be asked for as a voter living with disabilities? And there could be a restriction for some people.
Right. One of the things I learned in my previous role as working for Disability Rights Maryland as a voter advocate, I learned that people can be under guardianship and still have the right to vote unless the right has been specifically taken away. And that can be a little hard for people to understand, but it can also be, it could have been a roadblock for some people that thought, and their family member, the guardian thought, well, my my loved one can't vote because I'm their guardian. So, and Disability Rights Maryland, which is one of our many partners in the disability community, they can help you with any of those voter, specific questions around guardianship, and they're happy to do so. And I know Rachel has included their number and contact information on the handout. So I encourage, if you have any questions about that or know somebody that has questions about that, to reach out, because they're a great resource for that. Rachel had mentioned that there can be accommodations made when you go to vote, and there certainly can be. Like I mentioned a little bit earlier, there is what's called a BMD. It's a ballot marking device, and every voting site in Maryland, there is at least one a ballot marking device, a BMD, supposed to be on site and up and ready to use. And when I worked at Disability Rights Maryland, we always asked even people without disabilities to use consider using the device, because the ballot looks a little bit different than the regular ballot that people just mark for themselves. The ballot that's put into this machine um, is different. So we say we want our ballots to be private. So we want as many people as possible to use the ballot marking device, and anyone can use that device. People, when you go to sign in at to sign in at the polls, and they give you a ballot, they're supposed to offer you the option of whether you want to use it or not. They're not supposed to ask you anything about your disability, and you are allowed to bring someone in with you to support you if you need it. And if you do not have someone with you but need some support, either with operating the machine or would like help from the poll workers, they can do that. But don't be surprised if they send over two people to kind of help you out.
That's right.
Because typically they send a representative from each one of the parties to make sure that if one of them is reading you the ballot, that they're reading you everything as is on the ballot, and that everything is done fairly. They cannot answer any questions about the candidates for you, though. They cannot do that. They can just read you what's on the ballot. So what you might be thinking to yourself, well, what if I don't know about the issue that they're asking me about? That's okay. You don't have to answer every question on the ballot. Your ballot will count for the questions you answer. And I always say when I'm talking about voting that you, everyone, even without disabilities, skips questions sometimes. So as a voter, we try to learn about the issues that really matter to us. And there's those people that really get involved and learn more about than the issues that just affect their lives, which is great. If we encourage you to do that if you want. But if you go and say you only really care about the things that are going to affect your jurisdiction where you live and the governor and maybe the House of Representatives, say, and you don't care about maybe the school board, or if you're a parent, you may really, the school board may be your key issue that you want to concern yourself with. Whatever it is, your ballot will count for the things that you answer. So don't worry about that, and don't feel like you can't go vote because you can't answer, or don't feel bad about that. Don't feel like you're rushed to answer any of the questions on your ballot either. Take your time, and again, wonderful resources Rachel has included in our information today to go learn. Disability Rights Maryland can also help you with other resources about learning. And as it gets closer to the general election, there'll be tons of people out there giving you lots of information. I'm sure if you're already a registered voter, you probably started to receive advertisements from the different people running for local offices in your area, because I know I have. So don't let that be a reason you feel that you can't go and vote. We really want to encourage you. People with disabilities, their family members, friends, and our whole community makes up a very large part of the voting constituent in the country. So we want everyone to go vote, because voting is your right, but it's kind of your responsibility too, because we can't complain about things that affect us if we don't use our vote to exercise our voice about things that affect us. Then you can complain all you want because you've done what you can, and maybe your candidates don't get in, and that's okay too. I mean, we would love to see whoever we think is best to be elected. But if they don't get in, it's still, we can say that we voted, and we can say to the persons that represent us that we're their constituent, which means we can vote them in or out, help vote them in or out of office. And one of the things I learned a couple years ago when I went to Developmental Disabilities Day at the legislature, former delegate talked to us afterwards, and she said, you know that we, as delegates and elected officials, we can go in and see if a person really did vote when the last time a person did vote. So if you go and call your delegate up because they've done something that you really aren't in favor of, and you say, I'm your constituent and I am a voting constituent, because that's really what they care about, they can go and check and see if you really are actively voting. So it's really important. There's many ways, like I said, the mail-in is an option. So, but to get out and get involved, and like I said, if you only vote for one thing, you still voted, and your vote still does count for that one thing. And it doesn't count against the things that you didn't answer. It just counts for the things you did. And I know I went on about that. I really apologize, but that is important to me. Um, and
That's
again, just really quickly about the ballot marking devices, they can make things large. You can listen to your ballot. I have a friend that as she was 60 years old, for the first time, she was able to vote independently because she could listen to the ballot. So that is a great feature. Like I said, it enlarges things. There's even for people that use the puffins,
yeah.
I don't know if I say it right, puffin sip option. There's a way for them to plug that into the device so that they can vote independently as well. So I really encourage you to use that device, and encourage your friends and family to use that device. And just so you can be a part of the whole process. And again, really, that's all part of advocacy, and being able to use your voice to make your choices about things that affect you. Rachel, do you have anything to add? Did I miss anything there?
Well, Tracy, we were talking about some times advocates for persons with disabilities, or persons with disabilities might even say, I'm afraid I'll get called for jury duty.
Oh, yes.
That's
And
why
we
we're
talked about
vote,
this
right?
yesterday.
So,
Yeah.
how do you feel
Um,
about that as
well,
voting rights?
one, I think again, it's part of our responsibility, to vote. And there's some people that, either because of how they feel about voting, I personally would love to see more people with disabilities participate in juries and get the accommodations they need to participate in juries. But you can get documentation if you were selected to support that you do not have to participate in jury duty. Either for a doctor, caseworker, different things can support you with that. So don't let that be a barrier to stop you from registering to vote and being part of the voting process and using your vote as your voice.
And Tracy, just so we can mention again, mail-in ballots is actually an excellent way for a person living with disabilities to, and really all of us, right, as well, but especially someone living with this disability, to take their time with the ballot, right? Um, uh, we mentioned that briefly, but could you also speak a little bit about the mail-in ballots? Another
Yeah,
excellent way to
sure.
vote.
And you brought up another point that I forgot to mention, and that if you are registered with one of the parties, there are two main parties in Maryland. If you are registered with one of those parties, you will get a sample ballot in the mail, both before. Now, if you're not affiliated with either one of the parties, you cannot vote in the primary election because we are choosing representatives to go on the ballot for the general election for each of those big
Okay.
parties. So you do not, if you're not affiliated, and a lot of people, when I used to help people register, used to say, I don't think it's anybody's business who I'm affiliated, who I want to support. And I used to say, yes, I understand that, I get that, but you can change your party affiliation at any time. But you cannot vote then to either make sure somebody doesn't get on the help, make sure somebody doesn't get on the ballot, or make sure somebody does get on the ballot in either one of those parties if you're not registered with one of the main parties.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah,
so,
thank you for that, Tracy. We had that very briefly, but that for Maryland and other states might be different. The primary, you can only vote in the primary for the party you're registered for. So thank you for
and
remembering that as well.
in the general election, you can vote for anybody you want. You can even write yourself in at any point. You can vote for anybody in the general, no matter what, whether you're affiliated or not. You can vote either way. Um, but the other thing I did want to mention is if you are affiliated with either one of those parties, you will get a sample ballot in the mail. And that's also a good time to look at those issues and to kind of fill it out. You can even bring it in with you if you choose to go in, or you can fill it out in advance if you're going to do the mail in, and talk to people you trust, listen to the news, and find out about those issues and why you should either care about them or not care about them. So that's important to know.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I do know that if you are requesting a mail-in ballot, um, and we all got, whether we wanted to do mail-in ballots in the mail, um, I've got mine, but they are preferring if you have the ability to do that online because the mail kind of gets bogged down, or do it as early as you can to send that request in to get that mail-in ballot. So if that
Yeah.
is the way you think you want to go, you can certainly go. And you can also go ahead and send it in and then go the week of the election. You might have found out that things are getting a lot better and you feel comfortable going out and would like to use a voting machine, and you can do that. And you can have requested a mail-in ballot and still go to your local precinct. They'll only count one of your ballots. Like, even if you were to mail in once, they'll only count one. But that is a way you can still choose to participate in person if you want.
Oh, thank you, Tracy. Excellent. And Tracy, we were talking about kind of our ultimate, right?
Yeah.
Representation matters, right? In
Yes.
self-advocacies, and this is a good friend of yours as well, Erin Kaufman, who is a person that lives with cerebral palsy, has been nominated for the Democratic Central Committee for Montgomery County, up for election. Can you speak a little bit about how representation matters? And of course, if elected, he will be the first person in Maryland born with a disability in our state house. So
And we're hoping that air will pave the way for many more
that's
people to
right.
come. But this
And
is
he's pictured
very
in the middle.
exciting.
I'm sorry, I should say, just in case people haven't met Aaron
Yes,
Kaufman yet.
yes.
He's
And
in the middle there with the picture.
he's just really going to be, he's worked in the field of disabilities and disability policy and been very active with his party, the Democratic Party, for as long as I've known Aaron, and I've probably known Aaron about close to about 20 years now, and he is really going to pave the way and hopefully open up doors for many more people to at least think that running for office may be a possibility for them. And it's so exciting.
They're very
I'm
excited.
thrilled for him.
So now we have a few questions that people have put into our question box on the GoToWebinar control panel again. So Tracy will give people some time, and also Tracy and I welcome any comments, right? Tracy, we were saying as well, or if you're not sure, don't hesitate to ask a question as well on this very important topic of voting and self-advocacy. So while people are doing that, I'd like to share a little bit of information on our partners here with the Brunch Bunch. Prince George's Community Resources offers many programs, many free and very low cost, including virtual cooking classes, bingo, Zumba, and many others. So please visit their website, pgcr.org, for more information and how you can register for one of their classes. And again, a reminder here for, again, this is specific for Prince George's County residents for this particular information, but the Benefit Enrollment Center is an excellent opportunity. If you or someone you know is 18 and older, it offers you screenings and on all the available services that you're eligible for. So please do not hesitate to reach out to the Benefit Enrollment Center or encourage someone you know as well to reach out. And there are also available Spanish language staff, Spanish speaking language staff who can help as well. So excellent resource for residents of Prince George's County. May is quickly upon us, if everyone can believe that. May is, in case you were not aware, is Mental Health Awareness Month. And there's many different activities and different information available on this very important topic of mental health awareness. And I'll just highlight a few. And I did put this handout as well in our GoToWebinar control panel. Not a lot of notice, but this Sunday, May 1st, for our youth ages 16 to 21, the National Alliance for Mental Illness Prince George's County chapter is offering a free event, A Day on the Farm. So just an opportunity for our youth to engage with this type of therapeutic way to enjoy animals and be with them. Also, I wanted to point out as well, since we're entering Mental Health Awareness Month, that across our nation on July 16th, people will be able to dial 988 and they'll be able to be connected directly with the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. So again, this is just an excellent resource for us to know in case someone we love is in need of that lifeline, available 24/7. And they also have options for Spanish language and persons who are deaf. And Tracy and I also wanted to make everyone aware just of a resource that's available from Dr. Karen Harvey. She's a psychologist that practices in Baltimore. She has many resources available for helping people living with intellectual and developmental disabilities and staff to train them on trauma-informed care. So many people we support experience very traumatic events throughout their life, and she offers ways for us to help that person to heal and to help us to be better support staff. So we just wanted to bring those few resources available, and there'll be many more coming in the month of May. Okay, so Tracy, we're ready for questions. All right, so our first question here, and I might have to put this out to our audience if anyone's available. It says, is it on Prince George's County's radar to allow homeowners the opportunity to add an ADU for age-in-place facilities? So I don't know, Tracy, I don't know if you are aware of any issues specific to Prince George's County today. If not, we can get this some resources as well.
No, I don't know anything in that topic. I apologize.
Yeah, so I know that the Prince George's County ARC is also has an advocacy committee. So I encourage you to reach out to the ARC Prince George's County to make sure that they're aware of this issue. But please, if you can add any additional details, we would love to pull this out to our audience as well. Let's see. Oh, that's interesting. This is from, and Tracy, I think you touched on this, and it's an excellent point here from someone here in our audience. Mailing in ballots is an option allowing a person to make their choices a few at a time so they can take a break and then do some more before the deadline. So thank you for, again, reminding us about the mail-in ballots, right, Tracy? Just an excellent
Yes.
way for people to vote. So thank you for that. Okay, then let's see here. I don't know if anyone has any other questions here or in the chat. And again, Tracy and I welcome anything if you're not sure, right, Tracy? We were saying we want to hear from people as well if they're not sure about anything with voting.
Yes, if you have any kind of questions or comments about the information shared, we would love to have any of your feedback and try to get, if we don't know the answer, try to get you information and resources about where to get the answers you need for voting.
And Tracy, we were speaking as we were preparing for this webinar too about also when we're talking advocacy, of course, we mean self-advocacy, but also family and friends and other professionals, how this community has really created an incredible advocacy in Maryland. And that's been taking years to build up, right? We were just talking about the supplemental budget that was approved, and that was achieved through advocacy.
Yes, and I also was so impressed with Developmental Disabilities Day at the Legislature. The past couple of years, it's been online because of the pandemic, and we had over 500 people online at that event. That shows how powerful our community is and coming together about issues that affect our lives.
And Tracy, what have you seen in terms of actually registering to vote? Was there any tips? I think sometimes the barriers I've encountered is sometimes people don't have their identifications readily available. What other kind of barriers have you seen specific to registering?
The great thing about Maryland is right now, and we fought some legislation this year that started to come up about voting, is we are not a state that requires ID when you go to vote, to have state ID when you go to vote. We do recommend, if you're a first-time voter, first, if you're registering to vote, if you do not have state ID, you just need to have the last four numbers of your social security number, and then the State Board of Elections will verify you that way and put you into the system. But if you're a first-time voter, you will, of course, get a voter registration card, and it's recommended that you bring that if you haven't once you've registered. If you don't have that with you, if you have something like a benefits letter or a bank statement, something with your address on it, that can be helpful just to verify you for the first time that you go to vote. But after that, you shouldn't have any problem with needing to have ID to vote. If you go to another precinct, say you've moved and you go to another precinct, go to your old precinct, and you may not be on there, or you go to your new one, and you may not be on your, you might not be on the rolls there when you go. They will give you what's called a provisional ballot, and that means you can go ahead and vote. It'll look a little bit different than the one that they're giving everybody else, but then once they verify you, they'll take it back and verify that you are a registered voter, and your vote will still count that way. So that's important to know, that you may have to get a provisional ballot. And again, I want to remind everybody that no one at the polls should be asking you anything about your disability. That is discrimination. And now there are a couple kinds of people that can't go in to support you. You can't take somebody you meet out in the parking lot that's kind of handing out information about candidates in with you to vote. And you cannot take your union representative or your boss.
That's
and
right.
Those are for reasons, so because to kind of protect your vote, that it isn't somebody else kind of trying to influence you to vote a certain way and change who you would vote for because you feel like you have to because they are there.
Yeah, thank you for that reminder, because you can bring in someone if you choose to vote in person. You can bring someone to help you, but it cannot be, again, your boss, right? And someone that's handing out information, for example, near the polling station, right? They're supposed to be some distance away, right?
Yes, and you
Um,
cannot bring in, if you're part of a union, you can't bring
that's
in
right.
a union representative.
Okay,
But
yeah.
anyone else that you choose, you can bring in. And they may be asked to sign a paper to say they're assisting you with voting, but that's all.
Well, thank you again, Tracy, and everyone who was on our webinar today. It's such an important topic about building that power of the disability vote. And part of that is not just learning about advocacy with people on the go. It's also that next stage, if you will, which is voting. And hopefully, again, we'll have more representation as well. So we'll keep building that power base up so that we can create truly inclusive communities in our neighborhoods and state and hopefully even beyond. So next month, of course, I mentioned earlier that May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So for our next Brunch Bunch, we are going to have, this will be virtual. We will see how this works, but we are going to have animals who help us with our mental well-being. We have a speaker coming from Fidos for Freedom. And also I heard a rumor we're gonna have a therapy pig coming on, so you can learn about all the different ways animals can help us with our mental health well-being. So please stay connected with the Brunch Bunch team to receive information on our webinar there on May 26th. Curious about that. Again, I'd like to thank Tracy for coming here to our Brunch Bunch and sharing this important information about advocacy and voting. And thank you again, Tracy, for all your work across Maryland throughout the years on building people living with disabilities up to be their own voice.
Well, thanks again for having me, and thanks to everyone who attended the Brunch Bunch, and I hope you got some good information. And like I said, any feedback is welcome. You know how to get in touch with Rachel if you have any suggestions or things you want to know more about.
And we should say on May 12th, we have a flyer here. Tracy and I will be also doing a voting education forum at Main Street in Rockville, Maryland. So the flyer is there with information on that. But please reach out to us again if you would like to have more information on voting. So thank you again, everyone, for
Or
coming
about
today.
people on the go or STIR trainings, because
Excellent.
please
Yes.
remember they're free and we welcome you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And thank you again, everyone, for coming.
Bye.